I'm glad you joined us for small group leadership training. My name is Joe Stearns. I'm a minister with the Broward Church, and today we're going to be talking about caring for your small group, or another way to put that would be shepherding your small group. And here's a dictionary definition of shepherd. It means to tend, to guard, or to watch over carefully. So we're going to be talking about showing that kind of love or care for a small group. And so therefore, our encouragement to you is to be a leader who loves the members of your group. There's a lot at stake here. Imagine that you're a member of a congregation, and in that congregation, you don't feel like people really have an interest in you. You don't feel like people love you, that they care about your family, that they care about your job, that they care about other aspects of your life. Compare that with being a member in a church where you do feel loved. You do have people that are friends of yours who genuinely care about you. Well, a lot of times that can happen in the small group. Not always, but often it happens in the small group. This is the kind of thing that cannot be controlled by the paid ministry staff of a congregation alone. They need people like you and me at the grassroots level, in the trenches, as they would say, who are providing a fabric, a Christ-like fabric of love within the church. You and I would be, as small group leaders, the leader of that environment of love. And it speaks to the purpose of why you would have a small group in a church anyway. No matter what your congregation's plan or strategy with small groups is, it almost always comes back to including at least this much, that a small group is a place where you can know others and be known by others, a place where you're doing life together, where you're building friendships and meeting each other's needs and showing love for each other. And you and I, as small group leaders, we're the leader of that process. So today we have 6 tips and a final encouragement on this idea of caring for the members of your small group. The first 3 tips are attitudes. The second 3 tips are actions. So the first tip that we have continues on with this idea of love, and that is this attitude that love for your group is Christ-like and is a foundation for being the salt of the earth and the light of the world. So listen to this passage of Scripture. Jesus says in John 13, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." Perhaps you've thought of this idea, but your small group can be, should be, participating in the idea of being the salt of the earth and the light of the world. So not only does your group meet each other's needs, but by loving one another, it says that everyone will know that you're my disciples by your love for one another. So not only are you meeting each other's needs, but your small group is glorifying Jesus Christ by showing that love both to the Christian and the non-Christian people who come into your building, who join you in your assemblies, and who see your life day in and day out. The second tip on attitudes that we have is that shepherding your group, caring for your group, involves sharing burdens without carrying the whole load of others for them. So here's what I mean. There's a passage of Scripture in Galatians that sets this tension between you sharing in the burdens of others, but it's not your job to carry 100% the burdens of others. Listen to how it says this in Galatians 6. "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. If anyone thinks they are something when they are not, they deceive themselves. Each should test his own actions, then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else. For each one should carry their own load." And so at the top it says you should carry others' burdens, but at the bottom it says you should carry your own load. And herein is the key. Your small group members are going to have needs. Maybe they're going to have marriage problems. Maybe they're moving from one home to another. Maybe they've experienced the birth of a child within their family. Whatever that need is, it's the right place. One of the primary places in the church, the small group, is the right place where those burdens can be seen and those burdens can be responded to. But it's not your job to live your own life and then to have to live someone else's life totally for them. People need to carry their own load, but it's right and good, and they even say that it fulfills the law of Christ for you to pitch in and share others' burdens, even as your members also help you as a leader with the burdens you have. And so this attitude as a leader that we see that is a biblical idea for you as a small group leader is to be willing to share in the burdens, in the needs that come up within your small group. The third attitude that we would recommend as a tip in caring for your small group is that you have limits and other obligations, so know that a little bit of shepherding is better than no shepherding at all. And so I understand, we all understand that you have work obligations or school obligations, possibly family obligations, and other things possibly going on in your church involvement. And so for you to provide a little bit of shepherding is so much better than to get discouraged by the load of leadership and just say, I quit. I'm not going to care anymore, or I just can't help out with other people's burdens. To know that a little bit is better than nothing at all is a valuable attitude to take into leading a small group. Now, if I were to summarize these three attitudes shorter, it really revolves around having a willing spirit to be willing to love, to be willing to share burdens, and be willing to do some, not everything, but also, rather than doing nothing, that you're willing to do at least some in carrying others' burdens, providing love, and looking out for the members of your group. Now, the next three tips, our final three tips, before we close with a word of encouragement on leadership, are action things that can flesh out, that can fill out the attitudes that we're talking about. And the first action that I would encourage you to do is pray and think about your members. This helps you to be proactive. Now, something that I've found is that by praying about people on a regular basis, I think of things about people that I often would not otherwise think about. In prayer, all kinds of ideas come to me, and I have found this to be a common phenomenon with many other Christians I know, that as they pray, God is giving them insight into the people around them. I think it would even be a good idea for you to have a way of taking notes while you pray, possibly putting notes on your cell phone or having a pad of paper and a pen while you pray, because it could be that God's going to show you needs in your group around you that are going to occur to you in prayer. Maybe having vision for people are positive things, or ways that you can respond to the needs of people that you discover in prayer. Now, you'll notice I use this word proactive. You know, when you're praying about people and thinking about people, a lot of times you don't just need to be reactive, you can be proactive. So I want to talk about this idea in leadership of being both proactive and reactive. So I'm going to give you the definition for these terms, and we'll just talk about it for a minute. Proactive means creating or controlling a situation by causing something to happen rather than responding to it after it has happened. Now, reactive is acting in response to a situation rather than creating or controlling it. So proactive means you're thinking about it, you're kind of getting ahead of an issue, or you're having a vision for a person, or you're setting goals. That's being proactive. Both of these things are virtuous. They're great. For example, if you have a member in your small group that, for example, goes into the hospital, or maybe they lose a job, or as I gave an illustration earlier, maybe they've had the birth of a child in their family. It's great for you to be reactive to that as the leader rather than unresponsive to those kind of things that happen. So it's great to be proactive and it's great to be reactive. The second tip goes right along with what we were just talking about, and that is to respond to needs and events, often by coordinating with other members. So if you do have a member with job loss or hospitalization or the birth of a child, you ought to respond to this. If anyone should respond to those type of events, it would be family members, and then probably the church small group members would be one of the next groups or sets of friends that would respond to somebody's needs. Now, you as the leader, you don't need to do all the work. And so often, in order to respond to something, like, for example, a hospitalization, it doesn't mean that you're the one who always is the one from the small group who goes to the hospital. Pull in your other members. See who's available to go visit your member in the hospital. It's really not a service to your small group for you to do all the work, because you want the other members of your small group also being involved in the work of Christ by doing things like hospital visitations or visiting a person or giving gifts to a person in a special event, those kind of needs. And the last tip we have on action is, when appropriate, encourage or mentor for the growth of individual members. It would be so good of you if you had vision for your individual members, or if you saw things that could change in their lives or areas where they grow, and get involved with that and help out. Listen to a picture that the Bible paints in 1 Thessalonians 5. It says, "We urge you, brothers and sisters, warn those who are idle and disruptive, encourage the disheartened, help the weak, be patient with everyone. Make sure that nobody pays back wrong for wrong, but always strive to do what is good for each other and for everyone else." And so the picture here that we see painted is involvement in the lives of other people. And so if you have somebody that perhaps needs job training to get a better career, you can sit down with that member of your small group and talk about career planning. Or let's say there's a member in your group that talks too much and it hurts the way they interact, or they talk too little and it hurts the way they interact. You can encourage them. You can get in there, give them some feedback, friend to friend, earnest counsel to help them grow. And so that's our last action tip that we have for today. In conclusion, I just wanted to say that we recognize that shepherding your group may be the most sacrificial aspect of leading your small group, but it has the potential to be the most important and the most impacting aspect of it. So why would you go to the trouble? Why would you take on those burdens? I think this speaks to why anyone would do church leadership in the first place, and that is so that you're serving God in a way that pleases Him, and you're making a difference in the lives of others. And so when you're willing to lead your group in care, lead your group in shepherding, lead your group in love, you are meeting a need that changes your congregation and that glorifies God, because the church needs leaders who care. Our wish and prayer for you is God's blessings on your great work as a small group leader.